Hawaii's Big Island recorded several notable earthquakes recently as seismic activity beneath the island surged. And that same week, the Venezuela region rattled earlier this year experienced additional seismic activity too. The question scientists are asking is whether these two separate events are somehow connected beneath the Earth's surface. Here is what most Americans do not know. Hawaii records more than 20,000 earthquakes every single year. Most are too small to feel. But the ones this past week crossed a threshold that scientists notice. Here is the geological fact about Hawaii that almost nobody on the mainland is talking about today. The Hilina Slump off Hawaii's Big Island coast is one of the least discussed geological hazards in the country. Earl in South Dakota heard about Hawaii's seismic activity and said, "Tom, I had absolutely no idea." Earl, almost nobody does. Because the Hilina Slump is genuinely one of the most underappreciated Pacific hazards. If it ever shifted in a large enough earthquake, it would launch a Pacific-wide tsunami reaching California fast. A foot of rain fell on parts of southeastern Missouri from training thunderstorms just yesterday. Humidity on the west coast is dropping below 10%, triggering the most dangerous fire weather this summer. And triple-digit heat is pushing deep into Montana and the Dakotas at the exact same time. Point is, 3 completely separate extreme weather events are unfolding across the country simultaneously. Tonight, we break down the flood, the fire danger, and the Western Heat Dome all right here. So let's start with the heat, because a broad heat event is baking the Midwest and Northern Plains. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and the Dakotas are all running temperatures from the low to mid-90s today. And that combination of heat and high humidity is pushing the heat index close to 100 degrees. The National Weather Service has issued heat advisories across multiple Midwest counties because of this setup. When the heat index approaches 100 degrees, heat exhaustion and heat stroke become genuinely real concerns. What makes this setup different is that the ridge of high pressure is parked unusually far north today. That ridge is holding warmth across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and the Northern Plains without any break coming. Translation: communities that normally get some relief in mid-July are getting none of it under this ridge. Dale in Toledo said, "Tom, why is it this hot up in Minnesota and Wisconsin of all places?" And Dale, that is exactly the right question, because that far north ridge position is what makes this unusual. The ridge has no outlet and the heat has nowhere to escape, so it just keeps building underneath. Minneapolis, Green Bay, Madison, and Des Moines are all sitting under heat advisories today and tomorrow. Drink water constantly. Limit time outdoors during afternoon hours. And check on elderly neighbors who may need help. And that heat dome is not finished because another wave of extreme heat could return after a break. The Climate Prediction Center has flagged mid to late July as another period of elevated heat potential. So the Midwest and Northern Plains need to be thinking about the heat pattern well beyond just today. Now here is the flash flooding story because it has the most alarming numbers right now today. A stalled frontal boundary has been sitting over southeastern Missouri and southwestern Illinois for too long. When a front stalls like this and training thunderstorms develop, the rainfall totals become extreme very fast. Training thunderstorms means storm after storm after storm, crossing the exact same area in rapid succession. Rainfall rates inside these training storms reached 1.7 to 2 inches per hour tonight. That rain rate overwhelms drainage systems and raises rivers faster than any warning can go out. Frank over in Springfield, Illinois, is sitting right beside the worst of this flooding zone tonight. He said, "Tom, we have been watching the water reports all morning and some communities are in trouble." And Frank is dead right because some spots in southeastern Missouri picked up a foot of rain yesterday. A foot of rain in 24 hours is flat out extraordinary, even by Midwest summer flooding standards. When the ground is already saturated from previous rain rounds, that level of rain input triggers life-threatening flooding. Rivers already running above normal came up even faster when that foot of rain fell yesterday. Flood warnings and flood watches have been stacking up across southeastern Missouri and into southwestern Illinois. The National Weather Service used the phrase life-threatening flash flooding in several overnight flood bulletins. So if you live in any of those flood watch counties tonight, please take this warning very seriously. Do not drive through flooded roadways because standing water always hides far more depth than it looks. Margaret down in Lake Charles, Louisiana knows exactly what a training thunderstorm flash flood setup looks like. She said, Tom, once training storms lock in, the water rises faster than most people ever expect. And Margaret, you're 100% correct. And that is exactly the situation unfolding in southeastern Missouri. That's a foot of rain in Missouri, 10% humidity out west, and triple digits in Montana. Now on top of the flooding, the Storm Prediction Center has an active severe weather outlook for today. The highest risk zone is a level 2 slight risk covering parts of Missouri, Arkansas, and Tennessee today. That same zone extends through portions of Alabama, northern Mississippi, and parts of the Carolinas. The tornado threat is relatively small today at roughly a 2% probability in the highest risk areas. The specific area forecasters are watching most closely for tornado development sits around Evansville and Paducah. Southeastern Missouri and the River Valley communities between Missouri and Kentucky are inside that tornado zone. Wind threat is the main concern, with a 15% damaging wind probability in the slight risk zone. There is also a 5% probability of 1 inch or larger hail in the highest risk areas today, and a 15% probability of flash flooding within 25 miles of any given point in that zone. What is compounding that flash flood risk is how much rain has already fallen across this entire region. The ground across this entire frontal zone is saturated, meaning runoff happens almost instantly from any new rainfall. If you live in southern Missouri, southwestern Illinois, western Kentucky, or middle Tennessee, stay weather aware. Nashville is specifically flagged for 2 to 2.5 inches of total rain through this pattern. Charlotte, Raleigh, and the Carolinas are also inside a zone where damaging thunderstorms are possible this afternoon. Dale in Toledo is watching the Ohio Valley situation carefully because this frontal boundary extends near his region. He said, Tom, the ground is done taking water after wave of storms these past days. And Dale, that waterlogged ground reality is exactly what makes the flash flooding threat so serious today. Columbus, Cincinnati, and southern Ohio communities all need to stay alert for flash flooding possibilities tonight. The key message for the Midwest and Mid-South today is know your evacuation route before you need it. Let's shift to the West Coast story because the fire weather picture out there is no joke today. Southern Oregon and Northern California, specifically the Modoc Plateau region, are under a red flag warning. Red flag warnings come when heat, low humidity, and strong winds combine to create extreme critical fire danger. Right now in that zone, relative humidity is dropping to below 10% during afternoon peak hours. 10% relative humidity is wild, folks, because most materials reach critical flammability right around that range. On top of that dry air are southwest winds running between 40 and 56 kilometers per hour. That converts to roughly 25 to 35 miles per hour sustained, with gusts exceeding 40 miles per hour. That combination of below 10% humidity and 40-plus miles per hour gust is exactly the setup fire officials fear. Earl out in western South Dakota has watched enough western fire weather to know what that combination means. He said, Tom, when humidity drops that low and winds pick up, fires move before anyone can react. Earl nails it because Saturday, July 11th is flagged as the most dangerous fire day of this season. Any spark in southern Oregon and northern California today could very easily and quickly become a major fire. Still tracking 3 stories foot of rain in Missouri, 10% fire humidity out west, Montana, triple digits. For anyone near the Modoc Plateau area, do not start any open flames of any kind outdoors today. That means no burning debris, no campfires, and no activities that could produce any ignition outside. If you have an evacuation bag, today is the day to confirm it is at the front door. Fire conditions like these are why many Western communities now have evacuation zone systems set up in advance. Know your evacuation zone. Know your route. and do not wait until flames are visible before you leave. Now, the Western heat story goes well beyond just the fire danger in Oregon and California tonight. Las Vegas, Nevada, is hitting 111 degrees Fahrenheit today, and that is not a misprint. 111 degrees requires active measures to survive outdoors for any extended period in that heat. Salt Lake City, Utah, is pushing toward 107 degrees, which could be an all-time city record. If Salt Lake City breaks its all-time record high temperature, that would be a significant meteorological milestone. The heat is not staying in the desert cities and is now pushing into places like Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana, near 110 degrees, and Rapid City, South Dakota, near 105 degrees. Miles City, Montana, is also pushing toward 111, which is downright extraordinary for that region. Translation: triple digits are stretching from the desert southwest all the way north into Montana today. Sandra over in Alexandria said, Tom, 111 degrees in Montana is absolutely not normal for mid-July. And Sandra, it breaks historical norms for that high-latitude location by a significant margin today. The ridge driving all this heat is extraordinarily strong for mid-July, even by recent warm summer standards. Record-breaking temperatures are possible at multiple weather stations across the northern Rockies and northern plains. For anyone in Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, or Billings, outdoor time during peak hours is dangerous. The heat is not breaking quickly, with above-average temperatures expected to persist through Monday and Tuesday. The wildest part of this pattern is that the heat could surge again across the Southeast next weekend. The Climate Prediction Center is flagging mid to late July as another elevated heat potential period for that region. Now let's talk about Sunday and beyond, because this frontal boundary does not exit the country quickly. On Sunday, the front is going to slowly begin sagging southward from its current position in the Midwest. That southward movement takes the heavy rainfall and storm threat along with it as the front slowly drops. By Sunday afternoon, the severe weather risk shifts toward the Carolinas and eastern Georgia as the boundary sags. And by Monday, the front continues dropping, with Dallas likely sitting right on the boundary zone by then. Getting into Monday, the heaviest rainfall focus shifts toward southeast Texas, Houston, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. Margaret in Lake Charles is going to be watching that Monday and Tuesday rain pattern extremely closely. She said, Tom, the Gulf moisture is cranked up and a stalled front over Houston means flooding concerns. Here is where I want to hear directly from you about your area and what you're dealing with. Tell me your city in the comments and which of these three weather stories is affecting you tonight. And if you want a deeper city-specific forecast breakdown coming up, leave that in the comments below. Your city could be the next detailed breakdown I cover, and every single comment actually gets read. After Monday and Tuesday, the front pushes further into the Gulf Coast and interior South. Mobile, Alabama, Biloxi, Mississippi, and the Panhandle communities should all watch the Tuesday through Wednesday rain risk. And by late Tuesday, flash flooding risk extends into the Big Bend and southwestern areas of Texas. The total rainfall accumulation through Tuesday evening across the Deep South could be several significant inches. That is a lot of water for communities that may still have saturated ground from the current event. Back to those three numbers. Foot of rain in Missouri, 10% humidity West Coast, triple digits Montana. Let's talk about the tropical picture, because the Euro AI model has been consistently showing something to watch. The stalled boundary energy sitting over the southeast U.S. has a natural tendency to spin up over time. If that boundary energy hangs over warm Gulf waters long enough, it can develop something tropical. The Euro ensemble has been showing some members trying to consolidate this energy over the northern Gulf area. It's not something to be alarmed about right now, but it is worth watching over the coming week. El Niño is also a significant factor in this summer's overall weather pattern, and it is still strengthening. Earl in western South Dakota knows El Niño patterns completely change where active weather zones set up. He said, Tom, El Niño always reshuffles the storm track deck, and the results often surprise most people. And Earl is right, because El Niño at 1.7 is clearly in strong El Niño criteria. Forecasters expect this El Niño to reach super criteria by fall and winter, which would be highly significant. On the Pacific side, that strong El Niño is fueling an extremely active hurricane season out there. On the Atlantic side, the National Hurricane Center actually lowered its seasonal forecast because of the shear. With Arthur already named, they are now expecting approximately 8 more named storms for hurricane season. Gulf homegrown development, where storms form in the Gulf instead of the open Atlantic, is the wild card. The warm Gulf is not going anywhere, and any frontal boundary slipping into it should be carefully monitored. Here is a story both models are now agreeing on, and it is the most significant one ahead. A significant storm system is showing in the 6 to 10 day range, and that signal grows louder. The European model is showing a 996 millibar low pressure developing near Minneapolis next Saturday. A 996 millibar low over Minneapolis in mid-July is wild even by summer standards, no question at all. By the following Sunday on that Euro run, the low deepens all the way to 984 millibars. A 984 millibar summer low is the kind of system that drives widespread severe weather southward. Frank in Springfield, Illinois, this system would be tracking through your region, and it's worth watching closely. He said, Tom, if a system like that sets up Springfield and the surrounding region, we'll feel it. And Frank is right, because this feature could drive widespread severe weather from the Great Lakes southward. The Euro model is showing this system take on what meteorologists call a negatively tilted trough structure. A negatively tilted trough is a classic sign of a strong storm system impacting an unusually wide area. The European ensemble of 51 members is showing a strong signal for lowering pressure over the Great Lakes. Keep those numbers foot of rain, 10% humidity, triple digits Montana, and a major low this Saturday. The GFS also shows a significant storm system in that same time frame, though, tracking a bit further north. Two major models agreeing on a 6 to 10 day storm system sends a very powerful forecasting signal. The Storm Prediction Center has already issued a slight risk for severe weather across the mid-Atlantic for Friday, and by next Saturday following that low. Broad severe weather impacts could extend from the Great Lakes south. The pattern is not slowing after that, with active weather straight up through the end of July. That broader unsettled pattern is backed by the Climate Prediction Center's outlook for the second half of July. Dale in Toledo needs his emergency plans ready because the Ohio Valley is right in the potential path. He said, Tom, stretch after stretch of active weather, and people are finally starting to pay real attention. And Dale, that community awareness going into a potentially major storm in 10 days is exactly right. Let's do a rapid city rundown so you know where your area stands in this multi-layer weather pattern. Minneapolis and the Twin Cities are under heat advisories today, but need to watch next Saturday very closely. Chicago, Illinois is in the active frontal weather zone, with scattered severe storms possible through Sunday. St. Louis has seen some of the worst flooding of this period, with conditions still active through Monday. Nashville is in the 2 to 2.5 inch rainfall zone for this entire event total. Charlotte, Raleigh, and Columbia, South Carolina all need to watch damaging wind gusts today through Sunday. Atlanta is on the outer edge of today's slight risk zone and needs to stay weather aware through Sunday. Sandra in Alexandria, Virginia is watching both the Friday Mid-Atlantic slight risk and the following week signal. She said, Tom, it feels like the entire eastern half of the country is in play at once. And Sandra, she is not wrong, because this active pattern touches every single region east of the Rockies. Leave your city in the comments and tell me which of these weather stories is affecting you tonight. And if there is a specific city you want a deeper forecast breakdown for, leave that below too. Your comments shape exactly where the next detailed forecast goes, and every single one gets read and considered. Whatever you're dealing with tonight, whether heat or flooding or fire, the time to prepare is beforehand. Dale, Margaret, Frank, Earl, and Sandra all said some version of the same thing about this pattern today. They said, Tom, this pattern has layers, and every region needs to be paying close attention tonight. We started with a foot of rain in Missouri, 10% fire humidity, and Montana hitting triple digits. And we end with a major storm signal showing up for next Saturday across the Great Lakes region. Stay weather aware, check your local alerts, and keep your emergency plan ready for whatever comes your direction. The pattern is active. The country is split 3 ways. And this story has more days to go.